I'd like to talk about climate extremes and why that matters. I'm here at Santum Downham that became famous earlier this year because this had the highest ever June temperature, 37.3. It was beaten very soon afterwards. And it's also had the coldest ever June temperature, -5.6. And also it's had dramatic sandstorms. So famously, in 1668, there was a sandstorm that covered this church. And with a bit of imagination, you might be able to see there's a yellow stone there. And some say that that yellow stone marks where the sand got up to. But certainly there was big sandy areas in this area of Breckland, and it covered most of this church. So why is that? The key is that this is a very sandy area. So if you look at this molehill here, you can see this is just sort of bare sand. And that means that it heats up very quickly. There's very little moisture in there. So when it gets warm, it heats up. And then when it gets cold, it cools down very rapidly. There isn't moisture to retain the temperature. And also the Brecklands is some reasonable way inland. And so you don't have the effect of the seas keeping the temperature stable. So what are the ecological consequences of these temperature fluctuations? In fact, there's also cold winters here and this sandy habitat. Let's go and look at some more natural habitat. So how do plants survive these hot, dry conditions? They really need water. Water is essential for the cells to function. It's essential for moving nutrients up and down the plant. So when they run short of water, one of the things they do is they shut off their breathing pores, their stomata, so they don't lose water through them. But then that means they can't photosynthesize. Then as they lose yet more water, they start breaking down the cells, a process called wilting. So if you look here at this mouse-eared hawkweed, you can see how these leaves aren't doing terribly well and they're wilting. If this gets worse, then there can be serious cell damage. If you look at this one here, you can see there's much more damage there. And then over here, you can see how this has clearly died. So water loss is a serious problem for plants. And grasses in particular often have short roots, so they suffer a lot in the very dry conditions. But there's some plants, like this field wormwood, that does very well. And it has a set of adaptations, so it's got deep roots that go way down in the soil and find water. It's got sugars in the root cells that extract the water towards the root cells, and then they get more water. It's got hairs on the leaves, so acting as a buffer of water, so reducing water loss. It's got waxy leaves that reduce water loss. And so this plant does quite well under dry conditions. But then the secret for many of these species is that the competitors do less well. So it's growing here, but you can see all this bare ground. So the competition is being hit by these extreme conditions. And this seems to be a general rule for many plants, that they occur in extreme conditions, areas of hot weather, areas of cold weather, areas of salt. And they do that not because they like it, because it knocks back the competition. So in this area here in Brecklands in eastern England, there's a whole range of species, not just field wormwood, but there's a whole range of other species that either have a similar strategy and are good at surviving dry conditions, or germinate in the autumn, grow through the winter, flower in the spring, and complete their life cycle before the droughts occur. So rather curiously, these dry conditions cause serious problems for a range of species, but they change the community composition so that certain species can do well out of that by the competition being set back. So extreme conditions have a range of consequences, but some species are adapted to live under those extreme conditions.